Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to step outside the normal tropes of the genre and take a peek at how the sausage gets made with The Cabin in the Woods. To learn more about adequately pre-screening your Airbnb, subscribe to the channel. Let's get to it. We open on a credit sequence depicting various blood rituals throughout history, and then we settle into a calm office where a couple of middle management types talk about their personal lives before being interrupted by an eager young go-getter. Through the conversation, we learn they're part of a larger multinational organization coordinating some sort of worldwide event. Then we transition to a college gal packing for a trip in her underwear in front of a large street-facing window, as girls do. Dana and Jules have a little girl talk about their weekend excursion plans before Kurt busts in to football it up with Holden. Kurt then takes a moment to provide a thoughtful book recommendation to Dana, demonstrating that he's an intellectual meathead. Then Marty rolls up, ripping the shit out of his giant, collapsible bong. They all load up in Kurt's dad's RV and drive in the general direction of Kurt's cousin's cabin, and we get the sense that they're being observed. Back at the office, we get even more confirmation that despite Sitterson and Hadley's appearance, the pair are not mere plunger salespersons, as their working space requires a fairly significant security clearance. Meanwhile, the gang finds a rundown service station with a sinister proprietor who doesn't take too kindly to folks trying to purchase his gasoline, but he does go ahead and top them off and provide some directions to their destination with vaguely threatening insinuations. They end up concluding their interaction with a good old redneck sass-off before heading out. As they proceed through the final tunnel along the way, we see evidence of some strange natural phenomena in the area. When they arrive, they find the cabin more quaint than they expected, but it is bigger inside than it looks. Also, it's not too filthy, and the art selections are playfully evocative. Holden discovers this work to be covering a room-to-room one-way mirror, and he quickly falls in love. Upon revealing this to the group, they search for other architectural curiosities, and Holden offers, in good faith, to switch rooms, so he can show off his dick, which he promptly does, because the first thing one does after a long trip is change clothes. We all know that. As Dana covers the massive peephole, we pan back to see video feeds of all the rooms. The control station is bustling with activity, accounting for the room swap, pumping in drugs to increase the libido and dull mental acuity, among other things. We also see the local nutjob is on their payroll, and they delight in putting him on speakerphone and giggling at his absurd, eschatological ramblings. Continuing to build this out, as the youngsters engage in water activities, we see their vitals are being monitored. Also, the office has a betting pool developing about what fresh horrors await our unexpecting friends. They can bet because, despite the circumstantial contrivances, there is randomness built into this unspecified yearly event. The choices they make put them in the scenario and determine the outcome of something. That evening, the party kicks off right with a game of truth or dare. Jules is dared to make out with a wolf's head, and she really sells it, creating a whole scenario that plays out and really invigorates several of my latent kinks. When it's Dana's turn, before she can choose, the cellar pops its top, so her dare immediately becomes going down in there. She finds some strange items, so they all join her and examine the Museum of Creepy Curiosities. As they all diddle the items that speak to their natural curiosity, Dana picks up and starts reading an old journal. It recounts the horrible travails of the Buckner family.
I prayed that she might find faith, but she only stopped when Papa cut her belly and stuffed the coals in.
And despite the dark implications, she goes ahead and reads the Latin incantations at the end. This completes the interaction and summons the family from the soft earth outside. Back at the office, the winner is announced, and the control room then settles so they can focus on ensuring the rest of the evening goes off without a hitch. But also, we learn Hadley is sad that he has, once again, been denied the opportunity to witness the magnificence of the merman. We see the libido gas kicking in as Jules gyrates for their pleasure, and backs it up for a real one. So the horn dogs venture into the woods as Marty espouses a conspiratorial hypothesis. Everyone seems to be acting strangely, and he suspects nefarious forces at play here, although his affinity for smoking that devil's lettuce undermines his credibility. Out in the woods, we see Jules isn't quite in the mood yet, much to the disappointment of the whole horny office, so they start fiddling with variables to try to get them going, explaining to the new guy how it's important for the Vapids to bone down, because this follows a sequence that is necessary to appease those who watch. Once the requirement is fulfilled, the Buckners may now cut in, and Kurt is sluggish from the drugs and unable to save Jules. So, after a little prayer to the great and awful one's eternal slumber, they send some sacrificial blood to an unknown location deep within the earth. Marty then follows the instructions of a whisper in the dark and heads outside. He's disturbed to find a starless night sky, making him feel utterly alone. But he can't ponder this long as a bloodied Kurt drags him inside and explains what happened to Jules in the woods. Dana refuses to leave without her, but Mr. Buckner helps her change her mind. To ensure poor decision-making at this critical moment, they bump up the drug steam, causing the group to split up and get locked in their rooms. Here, Marty stumbles across a surveillance device now threatening to step through the looking glass. But Jude saves the day by pulling Marty out of the window and troweling his back before dragging him off. Holden breaks the mirror to help Dana, and they relay to Kurt their intent to escape into the basement, before hopping in and finding themselves in the black room where the Buckner family was slaughtered. Holden is almost lost when he catches a meat hook between the ribs, but Dana stabs their assailant into temporary submission before Kurt finds them and they flee to the RV. Meanwhile, in Japan, we see a group of schoolgirls handling their business and relegating an evil spirit into the body of a frog. With every other location across the world now having failed their ritual, it's incumbent on the US branch to pull off a successful sacrifice to prevent the ancients from rising. Unfortunately, Demo had a glitch, and the tunnel remains unblown, requiring manual intervention to finish the job. Recognizing they have little hope to escape, Kurt resolves to hop his dirt bike over the crevasse to go for help. So he gives a rousing speech, gets his speed up, and flies, and he makes it straight to the bottom like a Barney. As they head back, Dana recognizes this is all contrived, but doesn't get much further in her thought process before Papa Buckner shows up, and she finds herself all alone in the bottom of the lake. At the control center, they celebrate a job well done. With the sequence finalized and the gods appeased, the Virgin may now live or die so long as she's suffered. So they break out the champ to celebrate that they all get to survive another year. But they're interrupted by the red phone, which is never good, and they learn that the sacrifice didn't take as we see Marty still alive coming to Dana's rescue. He leads her off where we learn he got a little bit of a view of the behind-the-scenes action as his attacker dragged him back to a strange elevator, where he then dismembered her. With no other options, they hop into the safety of the monster elevator and utilize a maintenance override to get it to travel. As it does, they're taken on a tour of all the heinous crap they could have potentially been confronted by. As the vast scope of the operation unfolds, they realize the horrors that have befallen them are related to the artifacts chosen in the basement, and the possibilities were nearly endless. Their pod is located and brought back to the elevator with instructions to kill the stoner first to maintain order, but the Buckner arm gives them a pathway out. And after getting pinned down in the control room, they initiate the Scorched Earth Protocol, opening all the elevators at once. This results in an unimaginable bloodbath with horrible creatures of every variety, now free and roaming the hallways. Pretty much a nightmare scenario. Marty and Dana try to find a path that's not actively exploding, heading further down and in. But it's not all bad. Somewhere, a unicorn takes its revenge for humans driving its kind to extinction, and also Hadley finally gets a chance to see his merman in action, fulfilling what we now clearly recognize to be his final wish. Sitterson then makes it into the hallway but runs right into Dana's trowel. All he asks in repayment for his accidental disbowelment is that she kill Marty. She and Marty then descend to the lower chamber, where the blood of the sacrificial lambs keep the ancient ones at bay. The director makes a visit to try to rectify things, explaining again that while this all seems harsh, one of them dying saves everyone else in the world. So it's an easy choice. But fate does not shine favorably upon them when the Wolfman, as always, gets up in someone else's biz, tearing Dana to shreds. And then little baby Buckner helps her pal Marty. Now resigned to the consequences of their selfishness, Marty and Dana pop a squat, and in an effort to avoid going to bed angry, they get in their final apologies and goodbyes before the official end of the world, which they witness firsthand as the gods pick apart all we've built. Just note that I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. I'd like to take a moment to give a huge thanks to my donors, memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. What more needs to be said about Cabin in the Woods? Not much. It has a good balance of all the necessary elements of a great horror film, and is exciting throughout, which is why it seems to be so highly regarded. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.